How to get an unwanted heir or tenant out of a probate home. We get into that right now. Welcome back to the channel featuring the leading probate real estate team in the greater Sacramento region. I'm Brendan Mohr, realtor and certified probate and trust specialist by the California Association of Realtors.
And I'm Bill Heyman. I'm a licensed California professional fiduciary. I'm also a registered and bonded California legal document assistant, specializing in uncontested probate work, as well as I'm a licensed California real estate broker.
Now, please like this video, subscribe right now. Want your probate done for no fee? Well, every day we help people save thousands of dollars and eliminate headaches with our cost savings probate administration service and real estate listing combo. So if it's in California and real estate needs to be sold, reach out to us. Our info is in the About section on this channel. We love your calls, texts, emails, and comments. Now let's get into it. So it's how to get an unwanted heir or tenant out of a probate home. Now, this is something that we've seen quite a bit. Bill, what are some of the problems that can occur from having an unwanted heir who's, maybe not compliant with certain aspects of the sale or a tenant in a probate home?
Well, I would say probably the biggest problem with that is that if you have an heir or a tenant that absolutely refuses to leave, it is possible to sell the home, probate home, by what's called tenant in possession, meaning that you're selling the probate home along with the tenant, but you're going to take an economic hit on the price because any buyer who's going to come in and do that is going to want a pretty significant discount because they're going to know that it's very likely that they're going to have to go through a legal eviction to get that person out of the home. So it's an economic detriment to the estate to not be able to get an heir or a tenant out of the home. So if you're in a situation where mom or dad passed away and maybe a son or daughter or an heir is living in the home and they've been living there for a while, you want to make a plan as to how you're going to get that heir or tenant out ASAP, even before you start the probate. You want to start planning, what are we going to do in order to get, our sister out of there? Very, very important.
Yeah, I've seen issues with either a tenant that's in there who obstructs buyers' ability to view the home, would not allow showings. It's a possibility that even an heir would do that too. I've had heirs living in the home that did not allow much availability to see in the home, and you want to get top dollar for the home. You want people to be able to see it. There's been times that the listing online, there's no pictures of the inside. And the reason there were no pictures of the inside, my guess would often be because the heirs living in the house didn't allow pictures or had the house in a condition that was not appealing to the eye. The photos on a real estate listing are, in my opinion, the single most important piece of your marketing that will attract people.
And in terms of putting a plan together, I've got a list here of things that you as an administrator, executor, either if you have your appointment or you're potentially going to get it, but you may want to go through this list and make sure that you're going by it. And number one on my list is that you want to try to encourage the tenant or heir to get out immediately. In other words, as soon as possible after mom or dad passed away, because oftentimes somebody who's living in the home and the property owner passes, right when the property owner passes, mentally in their mind, they are expecting something to happen, like, oh my gosh, I'm probably going to have to move. Now, if you delay in asking that tenant or heir to move out and months go by, a year goes by, 2 years go by, that heir or tenant in their mind are thinking, well, I'm just going to stay here. That's it. I'm staying here. I'm living here. And legally, if you have to do an eviction, it's going to be tougher to get them out the longer they have lived there. The next thing that you want to do is I would immediately serve a 60-day notice on the heir or tenant. Now, if it's a family member, I understand that can be a little dicey, serving a 60-day notice on a family member. But there's a way that you can prepare them for it. You can tell them, look, This is part of the process. You know, I'm going to have a 60-day notice served on you. It's just part of the legal process that we're going through. You really need to talk with the tenant or the heir. Again, here's the lines of communication. You need to talk with them, and you need to more or less kind of feel them out as to whether, are they going to leave voluntarily, or am I going to have trouble with this? You really need to determine that and take a clear, unbiased look at that, because it's very important. Because if there's any doubt in your mind that this heir or tenant is going to leave, you've got to start taking the proper actions now, right away.
Now, this next one is something that I find a lot of administrators of estates and heirs don't realize. Why don't you go for that one?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. A lot of times, and this happens actually quite a bit in the investor world, when they're trying to buy a place that's got a renter or tenant only, you can offer cash. In the real estate world, it's often called cash for keys. And all that is you say to the tenant or the heir, look, we'll give you $2,500 if you vacate now. And maybe that $2,500 can help them move, it can help them relocate. And that often works. So that's something you should keep in mind. That's a potential way to do it.
One that I know, just to jump in, is reminding the heir that they're supposed to be paying fair market rent.
Yes.
And that's something that they may not really know.
No, most of them don't.
And that rent is supposed to go to the estate.
Yes. And it's supposed to start from the date of passing. When mom or dad passed away, if brother or sister who's been living there rent-free, technically they're supposed to start paying fair market rent to the estate. And that may help motivate them to get out, because if fair market rent is $2,000 a month and they stay there for a year, 2 years, that's a lot of money they potentially could owe to the estate. And it could theoretically be just taken out of their inheritance. The last resort here is, hopefully you don't have to, but you may, as an administrator or executor, you may just have to file for a legal eviction and evict the person in there. And if you have to, it's more expense to the estate, and it's going to delay things, because evictions they can be tough and they can be long. Yeah.
Now, one thing that you've mentioned to me before is sometimes other heirs of the estate or the administrator will maybe offer a temporary place to stay.
Good point.
And that could be a great solution for your family. It really is important for the real estate sale and for getting the most proceeds for the estate. That's really what you want to do. Protect the inheritance of each heir to get someone out of that home, especially if they're going to be a problem.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Brendan. If you've got an extended family, maybe that heir that's living in the house could go live with another family member temporarily until the probate home sold, the probate ends, and then the money is distributed. So yeah, that's a good point.
I've seen, multiple situations where there was an heir or actually the administrator of the estate living in the house, and it can often turn out, very well. But one thing to know about, just from thinking from a buyer's perspective, they don't want to inherit a tenant or an heir, because an heir automatically becomes a tenant. So usually on the real estate contract, there'll be a stipulation that at their final walkthrough, which can be by default on the contract 5 days before closing, it has to be vacant. And unfortunately, sometimes an heir or a tenant will try to elongate that and not leave. And we have seen that, and it's affected the estate in a very negative way.
It's a big problem. It's a big problem if that happens.
So getting out in front of it is the best way to go. And you listed a bunch of great ways to do it.
Yeah, very important, as I said in the beginning of this video, is you've got an heir or a tenant living in that probate home and you're going to sell it. Get a plan put together as soon as possible as to how you're going to handle that. It's really important.
That's great, Bill. Well, I think a lot of people want to know a little bit more about the broader probate process. And if you hang out with us for less than 5 minutes, watch this next video called The Probate Real Estate Process in 5 minutes. It's a very, very short video, and we'll be here right now, right in front of Bill.